Hello and welcome to another video from Accounting How. This time we are going to look at how to prepare a control account. Please do remember to subscribe so that we can get more videos prepared, like, share, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Accounting How. Here is the question. The following balances have been extracted from the books of Samson on the 31st of March. And over on the right hand side, we've got a bit of additional information. During March, a trade payable charged Samson £47 interest on an overdue account, and we are being asked to prepare the sales ledger control account for March. Dates are not required. You'll see that I've drawn out my control account ready to go, my sales ledger control account, and one of the best things to do is to think of the sales ledger control account as like a big trade receivable account, because ultimately it is designed to check, to verify that the T accounts of the individual trade receivables are correct within the sales ledger itself. The sales ledger is also sometimes referred to as the receivables ledger. So if this is a big receivable account, if we think of it that way, we know that trade receivables are assets. And so if it helps to increase an asset, we know we put things on the debit. So you'll see I've put a little upward arrow there, and I've put the TR for it because it's effectively all to do with trade receivables. And then over on the credit side, if something we have is going to reduce the amount that our trade receivables owe us, we will need to put it on the credit. So if it helps you to put arrows, why not put arrows? Anything that's going to increase the amount that our trade receivables owe us has got to go on the debit. Anything that is going to reduce the amount that they owe us has got to go on the credit. The first thing I've got then, you'll see I've entered the opening balance, which has come from the top of the list of items for Samson. The sales ledger balances at the 1st of March was £6,984. So immediately then we're owed that amount of money, which is why it's gone on the debit, because before I'd put that in, the account was empty. It looked like we weren't owed anything from our trade receivables, but actually we're already owed 6,984, so we're straight away increasing what we're owed. It's gone onto the debit. The next item in the list is the purchases ledger balances. Well, I've only been asked to prepare a sales ledger control account. So sometimes the information that we're given in questions is about being selective. Not necessarily everything is needed. So that purchases one not relevant for this question. Next, I've got sales on credit. Well, sales on credit, then that creates trade receivables, so that is going to be relevant. And then I've just got to ask myself, is this increasing what we are owed from our receivables or reducing? Well, if we've sold it to them, they now owe us even more money. So that 14,500 needs to be entered onto the debit. And there it is. So they already, our receivables, our trade receivables already owed us 6,984. And now during the month from selling them further things on credit, we're now owed another 14,500. Next item, purchases on credit. Well, purchases on credit, that's going to create trade payables. We're not doing a purchases ledger control account, not relevant for this question. Then we come to the returns. Returns inwards and returns outwards. I've just got to make sure I get the right one. So if we're talking about trade receivables here, people that we've sold to, so things that they have returned, the inventory, the stock has come back to us, so we need the returns inwards, £828. But when they returned these items to us, that is reducing what the trade receivables owe us. They're not going to pay for items that they have returned, and rightly so. There it is on my credit. Returns inwards 828, reducing the amount that my trade receivables or Samson's trade receivables owe to him. The next two is to do with amounts received and amounts paid. Clearly we need the one that's related to the trade receivables. So amounts received from trade receivables, £12,900. So that means over the course of March, our trade receivables have paid Samson 12,900. So I'm going to enter that onto the credit. And you'll see the narrative, I've put the word bank there. It doesn't tell me exactly how they have paid these amounts, but most likely it's bank, 12,900, reducing the amount that the trade receivables owe. The next item is cash sales, and this is a famous red herring in a lot of these sorts of questions. Remember, if it's in the sales ledger, we're talking about trade receivables. You can only become a trade receivable if there has been a credit sale, if something has been sold to them on credit. So if it's a cash sale, the person, the customer that the item was sold to has paid cash. They never became and never will become a trade receivable. They don't owe us any money. They paid cash at the time of the sale. So that is a typical red herring in these kinds of questions, not relevant. Don't get caught out. And then finally, it says a debit balance needs to be set off from the sales ledger to the purchases ledger, £250. Essentially, what this means is Samson has got into a situation where somebody owes him £250 and he owes that same person some money, at least £250. And he's decided, or between them, they've decided they're going to write one debt off against the other. So on the debit in this sales ledger control account, there is £250, but he's going to say to the person that owes him that money, effectively, don't worry about it because that person's going to let him off the £250. So it's going to reduce the amount that he is owed. And you'll see then I've put it onto the credit purchases ledger, a little c because it's going to be a contra entry because the other half of that double entry would appear in his purchases ledger, 250. In the additional information, if I go back to that, it refers to a trade payable. Well, I'm not concerned with trade payables here, so that additional information isn't relevant for this question. So all I've got to do is balance the account off, see which side's got the least on it, and then looks like it's going to be the credit, which is what we'd expect because we would hope to end up with a balance brought down on the debit because this is then how much the trade receivables, they're an asset, remember, how much they owe to Samson. So let me just balance this off. And we can see then at the end, Samson is owed 7,506. We weren't asked to put dates, but that balance brought down of 7,506 is the balance on the 1st of April as Samson goes into his next month. You'll see then here, it is exactly the same information, but the question has changed. It now asks us to prepare the purchases ledger control account for March. Purchases, if just like we talked about, the sales ledger is all to do with trade receivables. The purchases ledger, also known as the payables ledger, this is all to do with the trade payables. Trade payables, we will know, are a liability. So to increase a liability, we put things onto the credit, and to decrease a liability, we record things on the debit. So again, if it helps, put the little arrows, and then we are ready to begin. You might wish to pause the video at this stage and have a go at this one yourself, and then play the rest of the video, join back to check through your work, or stay with me and we will run through this one together. So going back through then, I'm really focusing on purchases and trade payables. So the opening balance, purchases ledger balance purchase ledger balance is 3201 at the start. So you'll see I've put that onto the credit because immediately we owe, or Samson owes, his trade payables 3201. Next thing I need is the purchases on credit. He's been buying £11,395 worth of inventory, and now he owes his trade payables that amount. So it needs to go on the credit because it's increasing the amount he owes his trade payables. And back to the returns. The one we need in this case then is the returns outwards. Samson has been returning some inventory to some of his credit suppliers. He's not going to pay for those items. It's reducing the amount that he owes. So I need that 603 onto the debit. During the course of March, Samson, it says amounts paid to trade payables 9867. So that's going to be the bank figure. That's reducing what he owes them. That's the amount he's paid off what he owes. The cash sales we've talked about are not relevant to the question in this case, or indeed the sales ledger control account either. You could have cash purchases in another question. That would be another red herring trying to trip you up, so watch out. And then we're back to this contra entry. Well, remember in the sales ledger, we had put it on the credit, which means in the purchases ledger control account, we're going to record it on the debit because it's reducing the amount that Samson owes to his payables. Remember, these two people, Samson and whoever the other person is, they've agreed to write off one debt against the other. So on the debit, I'm going to record that 250. And finally, I need to just go back to that additional information. During March, a trade payable charged Samson £47 interest on an overdue account. So it looks like he was late paying, and the terms and conditions with that supplier, he's got in a situation where he's been charged a little bit of interest because he was late making this payment. So that increases then the amount that Samson owes. He's now got to pay that supplier that £47. So I need to record that on the credit. It's increasing the liability. And finally, I balance off. So the debit side has the least on it, so that's where my balance carried down will be. And then put my total row and bringing the balance down. So let me just balance off the account. And there we have it. So we can see at the end, going into April, although I haven't got dates because we weren't asked, but April the 1st, the balance brought down 3923. So at the start of the next month, Samson is going to go into April owing his trade payables £3,923. If you liked the video, which I hope you did, please remember to subscribe. And that will really encourage me to make more videos. Remember to like, share, you can follow us on Twitter. Please also let me know in the comments what you would like to see in future videos, and I can get some videos exactly specific to what you want and how I can help. Thanks very much, folks. Take care.